they don't want Elon to be right. If Elon is successful, he has uncovered this very uncomfortable truth that was frankly hiding in plain sight. Everybody is conditioned to think, oh my God, that's incredible. You must be really important. It now allows, let's just say that now Twitter goes to, I'm making up a number, 2,000 employees. The great thing about the 2001st employee for the 2,000 employees and for the shareholders is that 2001st new employee is 100% aligned because they're coming into something eyes wide open. Go into TikTok and search for, engineering salaries. You'll see some of the craziest TikToks. Kids are making $350K, working 30 hours a week. It's nuts. Yeah. Making 350 grand and you're upset because like the matcha ran out or whatever. It's just so out of touch.
I mean, Elon's basically saying we're going to go back to working and operating like a startup.
In this video, the All-In Besties discuss Elon Musk's Twitter turnaround, work ethic, the culture of entitlement and victim mentality within Silicon Valley, and more. Also, happy birthday to me. Well, actually, to solving the money problem, it is official. The channel has just had its 3rd birthday. Time flies when you're high. Having fun. Both. To celebrate, join Patreon with the card in the corner or the link at the pinned comment. Speaking of milestones, can you believe it? The Patreon page has just passed 10,000 monthly supporters. I'm absolutely blown away. Thanks to everybody supporting the channel. I'm not going to lie. If I could, I'd join myself. So either these 10,000 people are stupid or you're missing out. I'll let you decide. Click the card in the corner or the link in the pinned comment to try and figure it out.
My comment is that, when you look at Twitter as an example, Bill Gurley had a really powerful quote as well, which is when companies cut, they don't cut nearly enough and they misestimate and underestimate how resilient a company is. Back in, Twitter had 200 million MAU, they had only 1,000 employees. And so clearly at that point, they knew what they were doing. And now the business has, increased in MAU by, call it 50% to 300 million, but the employee base increased by 7.5x.
This really matters. Despite what the dolts in the fake news are saying, Twitter's going to be just fine with a much leaner, more efficient, more dedicated, and more competent workforce, as we heard in that example. With around 200 million users, Twitter required just 1,000 employees. Somehow, the company got bloated to over 7,000, if you want to be exact, 7,500, a literal 7.5x in employees in headcount for a 50% increase in users. That's embarrassing, and embarrassing is putting it lightly. Exactly what the flying fuck were these 6,500 new employees doing? Not a whole lot other than interfering in the democratic process and keeping everybody safe, except from child exploitation and that kind of stuff. Because, who cares about that? We've got to censor all the opinions we don't like. Don't worry if people are using hashtags to pass around horrendous content. For those unaware, there was a recent update on this. I don't want to use the words too specifically because the YouTube AI is going to lose its mind. Next minute, this video probably won't even get published. But if you want to do some homework, just jump on Twitter.
So clearly something is misaligned. And I think the thing that, people are going to find out is...
By the way, with contractors, probably 12x.
Right. So I think that, well, there you go. So I think that the thing that frustrates a lot of folks that are leaving or that are trying to throw bombs is they don't want Elon to be right. Because I think to David's point, if Elon is successful, he has uncovered this very uncomfortable truth that was frankly hiding in plain sight, which is that many of these technology companies using technology get so much operational leverage that they have some enormous efficiencies. And then it's only a decision by the professional managerial class to reward themselves with fiefdoms and kingdoms of employees and, the serfs that work for them. I mean, it's really quite crazy if you think about it.
Here's the typical life cycle of one of these tech companies. First, they start up as a startup, lean, efficient, everyone's working their fucking faces off. But then they start printing so much money, gain such a competitive advantage, have such dominance in their area of specialty, e.g. Google with ad revenue, but they have just such an obscene amount of profit coming in that they begin to spend frivolously and unnecessarily. And then of course the egos come into play as well. We'll hear more about that in a moment. Fighting this inevitable bloat is one of the most important jobs of leaders of these companies. If you look at your cash flows and your profits and think, oh wow, yeah, we can afford to start offering free yoga classes and breakfast and lunch and all sorts of other shite as well that the employees don't need but they'll love, let's do it. Next minute, you end up in a situation like Twitter, where most of the employees aren't even turning up at the fucking office, and the average cost per meal served in Twitter HQ last year was $400 per meal served. Not per person, per meal served. Can you imagine getting your free breakfast or your lunch or your dinner at Twitter? $400! You could be dining at a fucking Michelin star restaurant for that money. We are seeing in real time Elon Musk completely and I mean completely, change the culture at Twitter. He's paring back the deadweight, the useless wankers, getting rid of the rot. He's reversing a decade of unnecessary bloat. Of course, most in the media are pointing and laughing, you don't know what you're doing, oh, you fired everyone, now the site's going to break, blah, blah, blah. But Elon knows exactly what he's doing, and these armchair Einsteins are too daft to even see. We are seeing one of the fastest, most incredible turnarounds in corporate history. And this is not hyperbole. I'm not just saying this because I'm some Elon D writer. This is a fucking fact. There have been many turnarounds of many companies, but never at this scale, never this fast. Most people see what's happening and they cannot comprehend. Therefore, Elon must be doing it wrong. I personally know people that work at just about all of the big tech companies that you would know. All of the household names. All of them. And most of these guys, and yes, I do mean guys, I don't know any women that work at these companies. They do exist, I just don't know any of them. Are making the better part of $500,000 a year, including their stock-based comp and their base salary. They also openly admit that they don't actually really need to work that hard or do that much, and they still get their insane pay package and their insane benefits. And of course, they're not going to go, hey, I think you're paying me too much, and also I don't really need to work that much. Should I, I could probably do twice or three times as much in a week if you wanted me to, but I'm not going to do it unless you tell me to. Of course, they're not going to say that. I mean, it's a pretty cushy position. But Elon Musk is like, this is not acceptable. Not in Twitter anyway. If you want to work like that, you can leave Twitter and go join Facebook or Google or Amazon or Alphabet or Airbnb or someone else like that. At Twitter, we're here to work. And by work, I mean actually get shit done, not pretend to.
Friedberg made this, early on in the history of this podcast. Friedberg said something that, well, hold on, I want to add to your position. Friedberg said something that adds to your position, which is early in this podcast, he said, the nature of organizations is they want to grow. And that's government or even these departments you're talking about. Anybody who runs a department is never going to say, my department needs to be 20% less so we can hit the bottom line. They're going to say, give me 20% more because everybody else is getting 20%. Go ahead, Chima, continue.
And then if you layer in the Charlie Munger quote, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome, you can understand why, because the professional managerial class is rewarded by compensation that is actually independent of dilution, right? Because if you look at these compensation plans, all of these professional stock owners, they complain all the time about stock-based comp, right? And these companies have budgets between 2 and 5% a year that they give away. And so you have this situation where an engineer or an engineering manager or a sales manager or a marketing manager in success at 1,000 people can grow to 5,000 or 10,000. Their compensation doesn't change. In any other organization, their compensation would change because let's say that it's a percentage of the profits that are distributed. Unless the company is phenomenally growing, eventually you'll see it in the bottom line of what you take home. And so these folks are incentivized to have these status signals of value. I have a 50, you guys have heard this. I have
a 50-person team. I manage 300.
person team. I oversee 3,500 employees, and everybody is conditioned to think, oh my God, that's incredible. You must be really important.
God damn, this is a good point. Absolutely nailed it. One of the reasons these companies bloat is because managers want to be going around bragging about how many people work under them. Not how much they get done. No. How many people work under them? Because the more people equals the more important I am, obviously. Most of my close friends run their own businesses. And every single one of them cares about results and output, not how many staff they're employing. In fact, they're all trying to keep their operation as lean and efficient as possible. Some of these guys work in industries, and their business alone does more in annual profits than companies that have 10 times as many employees because they think, do I really need to spend this money? Do we need this? We don't? Oh, well then I'm not going to spend the money. Now you might think, what a tight ass. And I would think, no, that's how you run a fucking business. Musk has created a number of companies, including Tesla and SpaceX, that are examples of this lean, resourceful, efficient way of operating. We heard the recent example, Elon disclosing Tesla's entire autopilot team, 150 people. Some of their competitors, in an extremely embarrassingly distant second place, employing 3,000 plus people to do the same job worse and be years behind Tesla. SpaceX is a great example as well. Extremely lean and efficient team, disrupting the entire launch industry. Oh, and the internet industry as well. And who knows what else will come. Key word here is resourcefulness. Getting the maximum amount done, producing the maximum result with the least investment of time, money, human capital. For some reason, these tech companies just seem to forget to be resourceful. Yeah, we got plenty of money, let's spend all the money because we got more money, it's unlimited money, so just spend all the money. And as I've said previously, I called this before Elon acquired Twitter. We're going to see in real time an example of how bloated all of the other tech companies are. This will be an indictment for their incompetence in leadership over the past decade and a half. Because we're going to see Twitter transform, add more value, more services, become a better platform for everyone using it, expand massively the scope and scale of what it offers to consumers and to users, and do so with a tiny workforce.
And so we're going to sort of now see in real time a questioning of that belief system. And if Elon proves to be right, it's a really important decision point for a lot of other technology companies. Because if you are an 80 to 90% gross margin business built on software, maybe you have a bigger responsibility than you've discovered to date to your shareholders and to the existing employees to find the efficient rate of return, right? What is the efficient frontier of headcount?
Well, turns out I spoke too soon because Chamath summed it up far more eloquently than I just did.
The other thing is, it now allows, let's just say that now Twitter goes to, I'm making up a number, 2,000 employees after this whole Google form thing. The great thing about the 2001st employee for the 2,000 employees and for the shareholders is that 2001st new employee is 100% aligned because they're coming into something eyes wide open.
Another brilliant point. People still aren't getting this, at least not widely, but these guys do. First, Elon pruned about half the workforce at the company. The people that weren't pulling their weight, out the fucking door. The bottom 50%, gone. And that wasn't evenly distributed. 80, 90+% of people laid off in certain areas of Twitter's business. For example, Twitter's election interference team. Most of them are gone. Nearly all of them are gone, actually. Twitter's just fine without them. And then the second round of culling was cultural. It wasn't just useless people, and I don't mean completely useless, I mean almost completely useless. So the first stage of the culling was getting rid of the people that just weren't pulling their weight. The second stage was, listen, if you're not fully bought into this mission, if you're not willing to work your fucking dick off, this is not the place for you. If you don't want to work your face off, if you're not committing to work your face off, you can work somewhere else. I'll give you 3 months of pay. That's very generous. It's double what I need to. Please leave the company. If you're not willing to work hard, Twitter is not the place for you. And now, as Chamath points out, every single person joining Twitter now knows exactly what they're in for. You understand the culture. You understand the work ethic. You understand there's going to be no fucking around. No more free blowjobs under the desk while you're pretending to work. This is how quickly the culture of a company can be transformed. He's completely ripped the band-aid off in the span of just a few weeks. And now every new employee joining Twitter knows exactly what they're in for and is voluntarily signing up for it. Just like a new engineer joining Tesla or SpaceX knows exactly what they're in for. What's more, and this is a point I've heard no one yet discuss, but it's really important. All of the brilliant engineers working at companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Alphabet, Airbnb, blah, 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 name your Silicon Valley and or tech company. Every single one of these elite engineers who's surrounded by woke morons, too afraid to share their thoughts and opinions because they'll literally be ostracized in the office. Wait, you don't support the current thing? Fuck you, you're a bad person. These people exist. They just get their job done and ignore the fucking woke mind virus infected morons they're working with. They don't say anything. Remember I told you I know a bunch of people in these companies? That's them. They tell me about the shit that goes down. And it's like, I can't even talk. I just can't say anything. I just have to just keep my head down and just get on with it. These people are going to be thinking, I could keep working with morons, or I could go work for Elon. These people are going to leave. There's going to be a mass exodus of the best talent who aren't infected by the woke mind virus, who really do want to work hard. They will be attracted to Twitter. It's a double whammy. Not only is Elon getting rid of the useless people and those who don't want to work hard from Twitter, but he's going to attract those who do want to work hard, who aren't useless, and would rather make the product better than interfere in the democratic process. He's going to attract them to Twitter. It's brilliant.
And I think that that's also an interesting thing that isn't getting enough recognition is he's putting out there what he stands for, this hardcore culture. Irrespective of whether we think it's right or wrong, all the people that stay are voting that it's right. And, as long as it's not breaking any laws, he's allowed to do that. And so if people now want to join that organization, they should be allowed to do that too. Just like the people who don't want to should be allowed to leave.
Sachs, you and I came up and we talked about this, I think on last week's show, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. We talked about what the expectation was in Silicon Valley at a startup, what startup culture was, in terms of just the effort that was required to build a winning company. And we all said 60 hours a week was the baseline. That's something that, has been, I think a lot of people, you mentioned this, Chamath, people working 2 jobs for 30 hours a week and taking 2 salaries from 2 of the FANG companies. I remember that 10 episodes.
Just out of interest, how many hours a week do you currently work? And are you an employee, self-employed, and or a business owner? Let me know in the comments below. I'll be very curious to know. If anyone's wondering for me, it's very hard to say exactly because a lot of the stuff that I do because I want to do is necessary to do what I do work-wise. And if I didn't do the stuff I want to do, I wouldn't be able to do what I do professionally. So if I count those hours, I'm probably around the 60-hour week mark. But if I don't, actual time working, creating videos, just over 40 hours, unless I'm deluding myself and it's more than I realize. I've done the 60-hour weeks. I've done the 80-hour weeks. I've even tried the 100-hour weeks. Not recommended. But I'm no longer willing to endure that level of personal suffering. I'm too much of a pussy.
Go into TikTok and search for, engineering salaries, you'll see some of the craziest TikToks. Kids are making $350K, working 30 hours a week. It's nuts.
Yeah. And so I think we're going to have a cultural divide here. There are going to be a series of companies that say this is classic Silicon Valley. We're going to crush it. We're going to work aggressively. We're going to put in 50, 60, 70 hours a week, and we're all going to benefit from that. And then there'll be another class of companies that says, hey, no, we want to have a more lifestyle business. And if people want to work 30, 40 hours a week and they contribute, we don't need to be perfectly efficient. And you know what? The playing field of capitalism will show who is right, Sachs.
Yeah, I mean, look, I actually went out of town a few days ago, so I wasn't keeping up with, every detail of what was happening at Twitter. And I started getting all these text messages about how Twitter was dead or dying or whatever, like the site had been unplugged or what have you. And I'm like, what is going on? You tweeted this morning, hey, is this working? And I'm like, yeah, like yes, it's working. I
tweeted this morning, is this working? Did anybody get this?
And so
my tweet went through.
So I came to learn what they're talking about is that all Elon did was give a voluntary offer that if you didn't want to stay, you could take 3 months severance. Now, remember, last week they had a RIF, which was basically economically required, in which they gave employees 3 months severance, which is 50% more than what he had to. It was generous. Now, it seems to me that what if you're one of the employees in the other half that made the cut, but yet you're not really motivated to stay, and maybe you don't really want to operate like a startup. I mean, Elon's basically saying we're going to go back to working and operating like a startup. That means that you might have to work nights and weekends like a startup. What if that's not what you signed up for? You may be sitting there at Twitter saying, oh man, I wish I had gotten Rift. Well, now Elon is offering you the opportunity to take the same package So I'm like, how can this possibly be a bad thing?
It's actually the great management technique that Tony Hsieh, rest in peace, from Zappos created. He would say when people went through their first couple of months of training, he'd say, now, if you don't want this job, I will pay you a month's salary. This is on their first day after they went through training, their first day on the job. He said, okay, now that you've gone through the training, I'll pay you, I think it was $5,000 or $3,000 to not take the job. And something like 1 out of 5 people would do it. And so he said, listen, I don't have to fire them later on. This is going to make my management easier. It is actually a kind thing to do to give people the opportunity to leave.
I don't understand how giving employees an option to opt out.
Well, it's because, you know why it is. It's because the reason people are upset, let's be honest, Sachs, is some people, live to work and some people work to live. And the people who are working to live find it crazy that hustle culture even exists. And people who are part of hustle culture, like the 4 people on this podcast, find it crazy.
Hustle culture? It's just working.
Hustle culture is working above the hours you're being paid for. That's basically what hustle culture means. If you're getting paid for 40 hours,
when you're getting paid a salary.
That's how most people would define it.
A salary is actually not you work for 40 hours. A salary means you get your job done.
Okay, that's how we look at it. That is not how other people look at it. And you have to...
Oh my God, this is unbelievable.
There's no question that Elon is going to raise the bar.
Can I just say, sorry, if we lose American primacy, it's because of that, not because of debt to GDP.
I agree with you. I'm still manning the other side. I'm still manning the other side. People look at their salary and they look at themselves as getting compensated for 40 hours and every hour above that.
But do you know how that
this generation's mind looks at as hustle culture?
There are people that
I'm not agreeing with it.
There are people that are working 60, 70, 80 hours a week as a teacher to make 30, 40K, firefighters, working on oil rigs. And to hear somebody like hustle culture at a startup where you're making 350 grand and you're upset because the matcha ran out or whatever, it's just so out of touch.
He ain't wrong. I mean, he really ain't wrong. The level of entitlement in these tech companies is astounding. Now, I am generalizing here, but generalizations exist because generally speaking, they're on the fucking money. Most of the folks working at these companies, of course, there are exceptions, so don't get too mad here. Most of the people working at these companies come from a pretty privileged background. They're above average intelligence. Their parents probably were too. There's a genetic component to that. Their parents probably did okay financially. They probably really haven't struggled throughout much of their life. And again, there are exceptions, but they are the exceptions. And these people don't have any idea what it is to struggle or want for anything. Next minute, they find themselves getting paid $300,000 a year to kind of pretend to work sometimes, get fed, get their free massages, get all the other bullshit that comes along with it as well, and think that that's hard work. Then big bad billionaire Elon Musk comes along and says, hey bitches, you're not working hard enough. If you want to work harder, stay, otherwise fuck off. And they get really mad and upset because he's a tyrant, because he wants them to actually work hard and get shit done. And to Chamath's earlier point, people don't get paid for their time. They get paid for their results. It just so happens most people require time to produce results. But it's really important to understand this. If you just got paid for your time, you could literally stay at home and they'd pay you. Obviously, you're not getting paid for time. You're getting paid for results, output, value that you're contributing. Speaking of getting paid for value and results rather than time, it's come to light that Elon has said that the best people at Twitter will actually be able to get Twitter stock in the private company, which for the record, I personally expect will probably 10, maybe 20x over the longer term. So Elon is dangling the carrot. If you really contribute, if you're one of the best at the company, you're going to get ownership in the company that you're helping to improve. This is how you maximize the output of your absolute best talent. Give them a piece of the pie. Then they're doubly incentivized. They're not just getting a fixed salary. They're actually being rewarded with an ownership stake in their company, which they're massively contributing to improving. It's a win-win.
I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah, and look, my view on it is that people need to love their jobs and love what they're working on, because I think the only way to be successful is to work hard, but the only way to work hard and be happy is to really love what you're doing.
This is such an important point. I'm sure most of you know, but let's talk about this because it really, really does matter. If you genuinely love what you're doing, not only are you going to want to work, you're going to want to work hard. You're going to want to work all the time you're working rather than pretend to work. You're going to be as productive as possible. But there's an extra incentive because you love what you're doing. You want to be the best at it. You want to get better. You want to improve continually, which means your productivity and output will continue to improve over time. Nobody can compete with you if you love what you're doing and they don't. It just doesn't happen. In my opinion, there are 3 levels to one's professional life. You can have a job where you just turn up and get paid and do the bare minimum. You can have a career where you're kind of interested in the industry, the technology, whatever you're doing. You like it, you're building a career, great. Or you can have a mission. It is the mission-driven people who change the world, who get the most stuff done, who work tirelessly and endlessly, dedicating almost every waking hour to their mission and love what they're doing. Now, don't get me wrong. It's hard work. It hurts. It's not fun sometimes, but a compelling mission almost magnetically attracts you. It pulls you. It's like a gravitational force sucking you into the future. You can't resist. Whereas if you're working a job you don't really like, you have to force yourself to work rather than force yourself to not work and rest. In case you haven't figured it out, I most certainly love what I'm doing. I actually have to force myself not to work. My lesson, what I've learned, is I have a limit to how much productive output I can sustain in a week and actually recover from. I'm maxed out. I desperately want to be creating even more content. One of my goals is to continue to increase my energy, to double it again over the next 12 months. And if I can do that, I can just about double my output as well. But I'm always redlining at the absolute maximum amount of sustainable output possible for me. I have to force myself to stop working. All right, Stephen, that's it, mate. You're at your limit. No more. Otherwise, you're going to be paying for it tomorrow and your productivity will suffer. This is the battle I have. I have to force myself to not work when I want to because I love what I'm doing. Most people have the reverse. They have to force themselves to work because they don't at all love what they're doing. I'd just like to take a moment to address the men in the room. Wait, it's 2022. Wait, are men still a thing? Assuming that they are, in case you haven't figured this one out, if you love what you do and you're good at it, women will find you irresistible, even if you have the world's worst haircut. Or so I've been led to believe.
And if there's a lot of people at this company or others who don't really love it and they are just there to pay the bills or whatever, then I actually think it's extremely generous for Elon to be offering them a package.
It's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. I don't understand how giving them an option was anything but positive, and yet the media has gone berserk on it.
Once again, David Giant Nutsacks spitting nothing but facts. And of course, we all know the reason that the fake news are painting this as negative is because they hate Elon, because hating Elon is the current thing. First it was for your protection, then it was Slava Ukraine, and now it's fuck Elon. So the absurdity of the comments in the hate stream media, obviously, we understand where they're coming from. They're desperate fears at losing control of the one true narrative now that people will be able to freely share their thoughts, opinions, ideas, and scientific studies without getting permanently banned from the platform by the Ministry of Truth. I mean, the Trust and Safety Team, or whatever the fuck they're called, the misinformation, I don't even know what they're called, the idiots that are no longer doing dumb shit and interfering in people's ability to freely share their thoughts, opinions, and ideas. That's why the media's so scared, and that's why they're painting Elon as his villain. That's why there's so much slander, lies, misinformation, and mud being slung. It's their last desperate attempts to discredit this guy and the platform itself, because they know their days are numbered. They're fearful at not being able to control what dumb people think, and yes, I do want to make sure that everyone understood that. The mainstream media controls what dumb people think. People who aren't dumb think for themselves, and therefore they think for themselves and conclude things for themselves based on their own thinking. Dumb people don't. Dumb people rely on the mainstream media to tell them what to think and believe and what's actually true and what's happening in the world. The worst part is these people don't even realize that they're being told what to think. They think that they've thought their way to their own conclusions when in fact they've been installed because they are part of a collective hive mind. Wow, we really got off topic, didn't we? It's great to hear some thoughts from the all-in besties about Elon's Twitter turnaround. These guys, all hard workers themselves, have made huge contributions in various companies over the last couple of decades. They understand hard work, they understand dedication, they understand caring about the mission you're on rather than just being at a job or having a career. And more generally, they just understand what's up when it comes to running a fucking company. Isn't it amazing? These guys get it. They're talking about things that make sense. Elon getting rid of useless employees who don't want to work hard is a good thing. They're making sense. Their points are valid. Meanwhile, just about everyone in the mainstream media right now is saying Elon's an idiot. He fired too many people. Now the company can't function. They're going to go bankrupt. Oh my God, it's shut down. What's going on? Oh, Elon's an idiot. You're doing it wrong. Blah, 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 blah. I don't think it's going to be that long before the All In podcast has more viewers than CNN. I'm not kidding. And it'll be well deserved. I'd like to jump the gun just a little bit here and say, rest in peace, legacy media. I would say it was good while it lasted, but it wasn't. You won't be missed. And if you guys would like to take a peek at one of the many asteroids currently headed directly for the mainstream media, Head over to Patreon now. You can join with the card in the corner or the link at the pinned comment. It's no accident there's now over 10,000 people supporting the channel on Patreon and unlocking tons of exclusive content. There's something there of value, something that cannot be provided by the fake news. I mean the mainstream media. I mean the purveyors of the one true narrative. I mean the same fucking shit. So, see you over on Patreon. Love ya.